at the logical point to start, that is the start. Where do you log into Signify and how does the login work? So it sounds simple, but there is a bit that happens behind the scenes that I would like to explain, which will maybe make the login a bit more sense for most of you. I know you've seen on Signify's site, and I'll show it now as well. We have login to Azure enabled on Signify Own. I don't know if you use, who of you has used the login to with Azure to log into Own? Okay, so we're going to do that today. All the time. So
I only use that because I forgot my password in any case on Own.
So Gert did the development originally on the login with Azure as well. So Gert is a bit biased over there, but I'm glad he's using the same functionality that he's developed. Okay, so on the agenda, I'm going to do a quick overview on the login. There's the different login options. And then we're going to spend some time on each of the options. So we have the standard login. We have a Signify custom single sign-on that we've developed. All right, before there was something like Azure AD login. We have LDAP integration. Who knows what LDAP stands for, what the acronym stands for, or the abbreviation? It's Lightweight Directory Access Protocol. So that is your AD server, your local on-premise Active Directory server communicates over the LDAP protocol. And then we have the Azure login. All right, so first off,
Jens, just one thing. Can you possibly share the other screen? We're seeing your navigation page.
All right, no problem. All right, thanks for that, Nardis. Nobody is stopping me because they're seeing the screen.
You're assuming there is a presentation.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for that, Nardis. Apologies for that. Let me do the following. All right.
Thank you.
So on overview, we have three different logins. We have the standard login. You have a username and password. All of us know that. And you log in by remembering your passwords. And these days, remembering your password can be a bit tedious. Okay. So we have LDAP integration, Signify Custom SSO, and Azure integration. So just in short, I'm going to say something short about each of those and how the process works. So LDAP integration works as follows. So all of you have logged into Master Builder. Master Builder works with LDAP integration. So Windows authentication is turned on in IIS. I'll show that configuration as well. And we are asking the server who is rian.treater@signify.0.0. That is the question we're posing to the LDAP server. The LDAP server responds back and says, I know rian.treater@signify.0.0. His employee number is 150.
Or second place.
Okay. So that information is then sent back to the application. The application goes and looks up in the employee database, is there an employee with employee number 150? Okay, yes, there is, then we log you into the system. So LDAP, or the Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, is used to translate existing information that we know about you. In other words, let's say your email address or your username, and sends back different information that is also linked to that unique identity that it's sent through. Okay. So that's basically how LDAP works. We'll go into a bit more detail in the next few slides. So the custom single sign-on is basically a recipe. So Rian now sits at a company and is logged onto an intranet site using our system, his intranet site. On that intranet site, The intranet site knows Rian is logged in, and his email address is rian.treater@signify.co.za. So now the information, instead of coming from the application, it's sent through by the client's intranet application. Okay. It's a recipe. We tell the client how to encrypt that URL to send that information through to Signify. Okay, so we have a encryption key used to encrypt the information, and we have an encryption key used to decrypt the information. So we set it on the application side, and we give the client an encryption key, and they use that key to encrypt the data in the URL. So when that information arrives at the client system, when they click on the link on the intranet website, it's a whole encrypted URL with an encrypted query string. On the application side, it's decrypted and the information is extracted, meaning Rian's email address, rian.treater@signify.co.za. Okay, I'm going to go into a bit more detail in the next few slides. I'm just trying to give a sort of a quick overview on how each of the login options work. They work almost the same, but they just get the information that they send through from different places. The Azure integration. So you've all used the Azure integration on Signify, and we're going to use it after today. So on the Azure integration, you click on login with Azure. We redirect you back. We redirect you to Microsoft. You log into Microsoft. Microsoft responds back with claims that are unique to you as a user. We use those claims to identify if there is a user with those claims that exist in the system, and then we log you in. So each of these methods, the below three methods, aim to get information about you from a source other than the application, or you typing in a username. Okay. Right, so the standard login, the flow, the first step in the flow is you have to authenticate. When you authenticate, your password is tested. The password and username that you entered is tested against the information in the database. Okay. Do we encrypt the password in the database? So how is that password stored in the database?
Is that where you use a salt to encrypt the password, and you store the encrypted password and the salt, and then whenever they type in the password, you encrypt that password that they've typed in again with that same salt and see if it's the same as the
Yeah,
encrypted.
you're 100% correct. So it uses a one-way hash.
Oh, is that what it's called?
So it compares the hash against an existing hash in the system. So the password is not stored in clear text. Okay, the password is stored as a one-way hash. So when you log in, the hash value of your password is sent through to the application. The application then compares the hashed value with the hash value in the database. If they are the same, the system logs you in. Okay, so when you authenticate, your password can be expired. Your user can be disabled, Nerian.
Yeah.
Sorry, I found that out.
Sure.
Your user can be locked. And if you have LDAP authentication activated, we need to authenticate if there's a user called rian.treater@signify.co.za stored on the ID server. All right, so I'm going to quickly just log in with these standard options and do the following. Can you still see my screen, Nardus, William?
Yes.
Okay, let me do the following. Moving to master. And then I'm going to just show where the different options for the password expiring is set in the system. So it's under configuration, under framework, and the global settings. So here you have your general settings. Okay, so you have your number of login attempts the user is allowed before their account is logged. In this case, 5. So 5 incorrect passwords will result in you being logged out. Okay. After how many days does the password expire? In this case, 3 years, or just close to 3 years. How many previous passwords must be taken into account when a user changes his or her password? So you cannot reuse your previous 5 passwords. Okay, what is the strength? This one has been hard-coded. So we only use strong passwords. Okay, you all know what the definition for a strong password is. Numeric, alphanumeric, special character, and so forth. Okay, this is where you set the settings for the password. All right, any questions on authentication? Okay, let me show you so where are these passwords stored? Okay, I'm going to go to the master dev2 database. Just trying to find my cursor on the screen. I'm going to have it now. There it is. And select all the users. So the user password is your one-way hash that is stored. And then you have, if I scroll a bit right, you have your is disabled flag. It is here. Disable user. This is where you disable the user. If it's true, the user cannot log in, but the employee is still active. Then you have your login attempts field. So there's a field where we count the number of login attempts. So obviously, if that's 5, then you know the user has been logged out. All right, there's one more table that I quickly want to show. And that is the user password. So we store the user's password. But when you store the hash password history, as you'll see, there's a field for the username and a one-way hash value for the password. And when the created date is when the password was created. Okay. So we use the created date in actual fact when we calculate how many days has it been since your last password change. That is how it's calculated. Okay. So in the login, we do a check for the same session. So how that works is the following. A user is logged into a browser, user A is logged in. So user B comes in, open a new tab in the same browser and also logs in. So we notify the user that there's already a user logged into this browser. We warn the user, we don't carry on with the same, we don't allow the user to carry on the same page when logged in as a different user. So the user cannot log in as their own user, switch tabs, and carry on with functionality that was available on the previous user, if that makes sense. So that is a check. That is a check in the flow, the login flow that we do. System messages. So for those of you who've logged into some of our clients, is system messages that display before the user is actually taken through to the landing page of the login. So that is system messages. Some of our clients use that to notify the users of upcoming training. In legal instances, a user accepts that they're not allowed to cheat on the exam. Okay, for instance. So that is what the system messages are for. And if you go to the system, under framework, just want to find my mouse cursor again. Under the framework, there's a menu item for system messages. I'm going to see it now over here. That's where you set up the system messages. Okay. And then you have a provider selection. Who of you have seen the provider selection? So when a user logs in, they have primary appointments that are active on more than one schema. It's not possible to do that from the front end. So we have a client, African Rainbow Minerals, that uses the provider selection. So the provider is the schema. So this user has an appointment on Kumani and Beeshoek. He's a contractor. He needs to perform duties on both of the mines, on both of the schemas, but he has to do induction on both of the schemas or both of the mines. And they have separate training set up on the different schemas. So you cannot see Beeshoek's induction training from Kumani and vice versa. So he logs in, the system checks whether he has overlapping active primary appointments. If he does, the system then gives the user the option to either select Kumani or Beeshoek before he continues logging in. Okay. So it's not possible to do that from the front end, but that is done through the localized daily import. There's a step that actually performs that. There's a step that actually breaks the front end rule to be able to do that. Okay. Signify custom SSO. Who of you have seen the custom single sign-on integration? Hardest? You haven't seen this before, maybe you have.
No, I'm not sure. We'll see.
Okay. I'm going to refer to the Signify sign-in process document on the QMS. Let me do the following. I'm going to open signature. All right, this is just a document explaining the process to the client and the work and the process flow. I'm going to skip to option 4. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, Theuns.
Okay, so Signify provides a block of code, an encryption class with the standard key that we use. Okay, the class is written in C#. So on the system side, we configure the encryption mode to be either ECB or CBC. So these days we recommend the clients use CBC. So they set that we set that actually from the front end, and this is the code that we give the client. Is C# code, called Signify encryption. It's a class called Signify encryption, and there's a decrypt and an encrypt method. Okay, so we mirror this block of code in the system also. but they use this code to do the encryption on their side. So they encrypt the query string in the correct format, so the query string to open the system. So we give them that as well. The important thing to remember here is they have the key, we have the key in the system. So we both have the key. So they can encrypt and we use the same key to decrypt. Okay. Let me show you on the system very quickly where that key is set. So it's under global settings and application settings. There is a key, an encryption key. This is the encryption key that is used. This is where you enter the key. Okay, it's going to open. It's the first time I open the screen today. Okay, so you can see the value is all asterisk. So it's not visible for the end user. Okay. All right. So we give the client all the details and then they build and the instructions to build the URL to sign on. So if you look at this generated URL, I'm going to highlight what we encrypt. If you see, this is the code. We take that query string from company code, schema, SSID, username. So the username comes from the client's intranet side. So they have that available. So they just prop that in, that variable into this URLs. That is all the changes in each of the URLs for each of the users is their username. That gets encrypted. And in essence, if you look at this URL, the URL then looks something like this. The client's domain, SignifyHR, their company code, app framework, interface.aspx. On the framework interface.aspx, we decrypt the key, and then we get the username, whatever they sent through. Okay. Does it make sense?
Mm.
Bert, does it make sense to you? Do you have any questions?
No, I'm good, thank you.
So that is not a popular, we use that as a last resort. The client doesn't have Azure, but they want to use the cloud. Then we use that method. LDAP integration is not possible if your LDAP server is not available on the internet. And most LDAP servers are only available on-premise at clients. So we have a LDAP server here called Bernardo. Okay, LDAP integration. I'm going to refer to signature and just show one example of this. All right. So we have a checklist. We have a diagnostic page where we can test Active Directory. The app _development test ID.aspx will give you all the information that you need to know. So forms authentication has to be switched off and enable symbol membership has to be switched off as well. That is done in the web.config, in the app's web.config. Okay. So let me just quickly see here. Let me open an example. It's going to be the best, I think, in this case. I have to log in to Offpop quickly. I think that's going to help to explain UKZN and Offpop and CBRTA. And there's one other client, I think it's ERG. They all use LDAP integration. They have on-premise installations. Okay. I see Offpop, I'm already logged into Afpop. Let me get the URL to master builder. This is also LDAP integration. So Windows authentication is turned on master builder. So master builder prompts me for my Windows username and password. The Active Directory succeeded, and that's why master builder knows who I am, because it gets that information, my name and surname from Active Directory. Okay, just a warning, the Afpop login is not going to work, but I'm going to show you how the front end looks and how you can debug it. So this is the production server. The dot means that I've been prompted, so I'm going to enter my Afpop username and password. Okay, so you'll see I couldn't be logged in to via Active Directory, but the system is going to show me why. So your Active Directory user, Afpop sysadmin Pretorius, does not exist in Active Directory. Please contact your IT support. Okay, so it gives that message. I'm going to show you the screen where you can debug Active Directory, and it will show you the setup as well. So I'm going to go to _development and test ID.hpx. While the page is busy loading, go back to master. I'm going to show here. So you'll see the application settings here as well for LDAP. All right, so this is where you turn Active Directory authentication on or off. And then you have different modes for LDAP authentication. You have a login mode and an auto mode. The login mode means you navigate to Signify's login screen and you enter your Active Directory username and password in the username and password fields that are normally used for the standard login. Auto means you land on the start page, the login page, and are logged in automatically into the system. So your username is extracted from the header that is passed through on the request to IIS. Okay, IIS sends through the request for one reason, and one reason only. I'm going to show you IIS. So if you set up your application and the Signify and authentication over here, you have to turn off anonymous authentication and you have to turn on Windows authentication. IIS then receives your username Harvey.Labuskaghni on the request. Okay. Okay, so that is a setup. All that setup is replicated on this diagnostic screen. So the settings are selected automatically from the configuration that you've done. All right, so my username is sysadmin Theuns Pretorius. It says the employee number is stored in the employee ID field on Active Directory. I'm going to test it. It doesn't work. That's why I cannot log in from the front end, but SAM account name exists. My user does exist on Active Directory, but not with an employee ID. Did I spell that correctly? Is that Theuns Pretorius? Okay, seems I was mistaken. Oh yeah, sorry, I have to send in is admin underscore Theuns Pretorius, not the domain is separate. Here's the domain. And there's my details from Active Directory. It only returns the information because I've specified that the employee ID should not be used, but the SAM account name. So the client's users have all employee IDs configured. That's why they are able to log in. System or service account users normally don't get employee ID at clients. Okay, so from here on in, a client can have a query now to say, my username is Harvey. Why am I not able to log in? Okay, Harvey, you're not found. I think there's somebody by the name. I'm gonna guess now. I'm gonna try two different ways of spelling Oosthuizen. Oh, Oosthuizen. Okay, it's not somebody by that name. Yeah. Henry.Oosthuizen. Okay, it's also not there. So if the user, if the space doesn't bring back the information, it means the information either does not exist on Active Directory or the user doesn't have the employee ID property set. So this is a handy page that you can use to debug support on LDAP authentication login. Okay. Any questions on LDAP authentication? Okay. Nardus, Gert, Willem, are you all so fine?
I'm good, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Jens.
Is happy dan.
Azure Login. Okay, I'm going to refer to the Azure Login, to the login options document again. I think it's still open here. Oh, sorry, there is a, yeah, here's the document. Okay, so Signify redirects you away to Microsoft. Log into Microsoft. Microsoft responds back with, if your login has been successful, it responds back with a claim. So a claim is just information on you as a user, whether it be your role, your surname, or your birthday, or your email address. It's information that identifies you as a user. So we use the claims that we receive from Microsoft after successful login to log into the system. Okay, so the first part is the following. I'm going to show that on the Azure portal. So you first have to set up an app registration on Azure. Okay, so the app registration is the application that you create, that you authenticate to go and query Azure Active Directory. Okay, so we set that up on the portal, the Azure portal. I have quite a few users. Select an app registration, go to app registration, and then we have an application that we use on all of the new clients called Azure Multi-Tenant. All right, so just important to note, the important information on this app registration is your client ID. So this is the unique ID for this app registration over the whole of Azure. Okay, our application contacts Microsoft with that client ID. The second thing is under authentication. The URLs where the request is made from must be whitelisted on the app registration. So you'll see here, we have syspro, we have DUT, we have Martha QA, we have localhost here as well. Important to note that if you test this, test it on localhost with an SSL certificate installed. If an SSL certificate is not installed, it fails and it gives I almost said a nonsense issue. There's a message that says there was an issue with a nonce. Okay, which is something you only use once. That's where the once comes from. Okay, so you have to set this up. This is your communication with Microsoft. Okay. There are ways to only limit the users that are going to authenticate only to your tenant. So if we only want Signify users to be able to log in using this app registration, we are going to do setup as well and add the tenant ID. This is for Signify software to the setup. If we do that, only Signify software users are able to use or are able to authenticate using this app registration. This one is currently set up for all personal and organizational accounts. Okay, so let's use an example. I'm going to use, I think I have one open here. I maybe closed it. We're going to use Durban University of Technology, TUT. Okay. Right, so they were initially set up. Okay, we can actually use Signify as well. They were initially set up on the app domain. Okay, we're going to say continue with Microsoft account. You get redirected away, select your account, get redirected back to the system, and you're logged in. Okay. The information that is sent back from Microsoft that is compared against the system is compared against your username, your employee number, and your email address. Okay, so in this case, Microsoft responded back with my email address. So even though DUT users are also going to log in, I can also log in because Microsoft sent through a claim on my, they call it preferred username, but it is actually, if you look at it, it's your email address. Okay. I'm going to go out again just to demonstrate something else. It's important to note, DUT, the URL communicated to them is app.SignifyHR, and the redirect URLs that are whitelisted are app.SignifyHR. So you won't be able to log in from www for DUT. Okay. I'm going to choose a different account now. I'm going to hopefully choose an account that I don't have to enter the password for again. Right, if I enter it, I'm going to use that one. Okay. Who of you uses a password manager? Okay. I'm guessing not everybody on the call uses it. So I have many passwords, but I only remember one. And I'm going to go back here. I'm looking for a specific user. Azure portal window, this is the one. Copy this password. And then hopefully it's going to take me to the multi-factor authentication. to log in with that. $66. Okay, so I'm signing in with a different user now, and that user does not exist. Okay, so the first time the user is logged in, they ask the user for their permissions. Okay. To access that information. Oh, okay, this user doesn't exist. So it will say the Azure user was not found on the system. Okay, just to quickly show you on Signify own. On Signify own. We have logging with Azure enabled. That user doesn't exist, but I wanted to show you this because this login is set up only for the Signify software tenant. It will say selected user does not exist in tenant Signify software. Okay. Okay, but that user is, and I'm logged into the system. All right, that is it with regards to the Azure login. Are there any questions on the login?
Not for me.
All right, Nardis, William, are you guys happy?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Theuns.
All right, that is it with regards to the login. That is the different options you can use to log in and the flow of the login. So as I said in the beginning, it is something that looks simple from the front, but there's a lot of gear turning in the background when you log in. All right, there's also a user log stored. Let me just quickly show that. So every time a user logs in, okay, the first thing is the user finds their mouse pointer. Here it is. Okay, let's do top 100. So you'll see here, every time a user logs in, the company code is stored, the date and time, the IP address, session variable, your browser, the server variable, or the server variables, for those of you who have worked with server variables before, session variables. If you switch users, if you switch to another user, the user ID that you're switching to is also stored here in the log. The failed login, what the password was, okay? And this is stored in clear text. No, I'm kidding, that nobody's going to remember that. The schema, your session ID, the login URL, the login timestamp, the login type. So the login type can be from the front end. There's a few zeros here now, but can be from the front end, can be from the mobile app. Okay. And that's all for me for now. Okay, shout if you in the weeks ahead, if you encounter something that doesn't make sense or if you have a question, please ask. Okay.
Theuns, can I just as a side note say something?
Yes, you can. No,
Right.
please do.
So you went through the SSO types now there. So that custom SSO type is the exact same implementation we use in version 9 to SSO into version 8 to expose the features of version 8 in version 9. So we do use the CBC method. So if you ever wonder how that SSO process works, you can go and look at that same documentation regarding the custom Signify SSO process.
Okay, makes sense. Thanks for that, Martinez.
Cool. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Okay. Thank
That was
you.
nice. Thanks,
Good to
guys.
hear.
Bye-bye.
All right.